Oregon continues to find ways to address the state's addiction crisis. State lawmakers, nonprofits, law enforcement, and faith leaders discussed possible solutions during a roundtable in Northeast Portland.
Well, Fox 12's Connor McCarthy live in the studio with the takeaways from that meeting.
Well, this roundtable was hosted by former gubernatorial candidate Christine Drazen. There was a diverse group of people at the table today, including those who went on a trip to Portugal to evaluate how that country is handling their addiction crisis after decriminalizing drug possession in 2001. But at the center of the discussion was Measure 110 and what about the law needs to be fixed. It was a roundtable to talk about Oregon's addiction crisis and how Measure 110 impacted the problem.
We know that the rollout of ballot Measure 110 has not gone as smoothly as we have liked for a lot of reasons.
Hosted by former gubernatorial candidate Christine Drazen, the conversation addressed how the crisis is taking the lives of Oregonians, contributing to crime across the state, and impacting the livability of neighborhoods.
People are hunkered down in their homes. They're afraid to let their kids play out in the street. Can't do that. And you always have to make sure that your doors are locked and that everything is secure. And it's not a good way to live.
Nonprofits who help those struggling with addiction say this crisis needs to be treated like a disease. Zori Kirikosian, Portland Director of Adult and Teen Challenge Pacific Northwest, says he wants to see the state build stronger relationships with all nonprofits, not just the ones who get money from the state. He says there needs to be a more systematic approach to providing resources so addicts know where to go.
And I see a big issue with a lot of programs being full and there being wait lists. That's often what we hear from people, that there actually is a lot of people that do want help.
On the law enforcement side, Marion County DA Paige Clarkson says Measure 110 has prevented law enforcement from stepping in where it is appropriate. She says before the measure, her county was able to put people in diversion programs and specialty courts. She also says there's another unintended consequence of the decriminalization of hard drugs, is that it put up a roadblock on how police investigate the drug supply chain.
Individuals who are often contacted by law enforcement with small amounts of drugs in their possession, they often worked with law enforcement. And the incentive of working with law enforcement was they would get their charges dismissed.
Clarkson says building this relationship helped law enforcement climb the ladder to find the source of the supply chain. For Portland Police Association President Aaron Schmaltz, he says the state needs to find common ground on how to address this crisis and not exclude finding a way for law enforcement to play a role in finding a solution.
There are some communities that have historical harm as it relates to law enforcement, so we need to be sensitive to asking law enforcement to go into those communities before relationships are built. We've got to make sure we're doing all this in the right order, because at the end of the day, every single person that I've ever met who wears a uniform, they want to help.
When it comes to Measure 110, the Oregon Health Authority says between January 1st and March 31st of this year, 7,000 people received substance use disorder treatment since Measure 110 went into place, and 47,000 expressed interest in finding help. Live in the studio, Connor McCarthy, Fox 12 Oregon.